Hey, today we got a nice one. When do we not, right? Today we're looking at The Art of Sean Phillips. This is a big, beautiful deluxe hardcover published by Dynamite in 2013 originally. Seems to still be readily available pretty much everywhere. Got mine from InStockTrades.com. Recommend you go get them there too. They're just the best. Anyway, this thing's 312 pages. It was $39.99 suggested list, but like I said, you can get it much cheaper at places like InStockTrades.com. Really nice build quality. I will show some shots here of it compared to some other large books, so you get an idea. I'll show it next to a gallery edition, a Marvel gallery, and maybe next to an Absolute, and next to an Omnibus, so you got an idea here. So, Sean Phillips, of course, does all the art in here. It's an art book about Sean Phillips, and he writes it, but he has a writing assist by Eddie Robson. Not familiar with that name, but that's who helped him write this. So this is not a comic book, but rather an art book. Of course, it features a ton of fabulous comic book art by Sean Phillips, but it also features a lot of text with the real story of how he got into comics, the struggles he had as he was coming up and trying to get work, and even how he learned to draw and learned to do sequential art. It's all covered in here in pretty deep, really deeper than I expected it to be, and surprisingly personal. It's good stuff here. There's a lot of old pictures of him and his friends and his relatives, and I'll run a few of them here. I did learn quite a bit about, a couple of genres that I didn't even know existed. I mean, I knew there were British comics, of course. I mean, I had just a kind of a cursory knowledge of that you would have as a American comic book collector. I mean, I knew about 2000 AD and, of course, Judge Dredd. But that's about all I knew about British comics. Now, I mean, I knew that they took in and repackaged a lot of the Marvel comics, and I assume some DC, but I mean, I noticed the Marvel stuff was like they would take American Marvel comics and repackage them and put them in like sort of an anthology type edition where they would have like a Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. They'll have in one big volume. Of course, they were kind of a magazine size compared to ours. Now, I have one of them. I have a Fantastic Four like that. But anyway, I didn't know much about their very specific original British comics. And I didn't know there was an entire genre called girls comics. I mean, this kind of thing wouldn't fly today, but this was back, I guess it was 70s. Yeah, 70s, and maybe before that even. But it turns out that Sean Phillips got working on these girls comics very early on. And I'll show some scans from that. And a lot of that is featured in the book where he talks about how he began. He's like 15, 16 years old. He was working professionally. I mean, another one of those guys that just were great right away and just continued to get better and better as time went on and as he worked on more and more varied projects. And then this pretty much shows the entire progression and brings you up to his collaborations with Ed Brubaker. The thing I know and love him from the most, of course, is Fatale and Criminal and Incognito and Sleeper and all these kinds of very atmospheric crime noir type stuff. And it's this overview, and it does go in year progression, of course, starts at the beginning and brings you right on up to 2013 of his career. And it reminded me, I mean, I actually had experienced Sean Phillips before I knew him as, hey, the Sean Phillips, the Ed Brubaker partner, And I guess I had forgotten about it because, I mean, I was buying comics off the shelf, singles then. I wasn't into collected editions yet so much. When he did some work for X-Men, which I had forgotten all about, and another book that he did for Marvel that I really had forgotten that he did the art for that, and I have all of these editions, But hey, when you get old and you've read as many things as I have, you start to forget. So sometimes it's fun to be reminded of some of the old greats, I mean, I would have never considered something from the 2000s old, but hey, it's 2022, so it was a while back. But what I'm talking about is Marvel Zombies. Yeah, Sean Phillips was one of the original artists on that book. And I'll show some clips of that, some scans from that. And I had forgotten all about that was Sean Phillips. But man, it was. And I liked that stuff then. I wasn't really quite sure about him as an artist because I hadn't seen much of his work by then. But yeah, he did some of that and it was good. Anyway, yeah, that bit about the girls comics really surprised me because I learned about a genre that I would have no reason to know about or care about for that matter. But it was very interesting to see the British side of things. I mean, I knew there were a lot of great British artists. I mean, you had John Bolton and of course Sean Phillips and Barry Windsor Smith. I think Steve Dillon. I think he might have been. Yeah. Steve Dillon was another one. Yeah, plenty of them. But anyway, yeah, this is a great overview, and like I said, a little kind of deeply personal, more personal than I thought he would go into, and it takes a lot of courage to do that. I mean, he showed some of his very early art when he was a little kid and maybe a young teenager, and right before that, and he kind of makes fun of himself, and in a way, I think he's a little hard. He's a little harsh on himself at times. He'll say something was that I messed this job up, and well, I mean, maybe he made some mistakes as a young artist, but still pretty great stuff. I mean, you'll see if you take a look at it. But yeah, it goes in a little deeper into how he got started and where he eventually went than I thought it would. So yeah, I mean, I was excited to get this just to see the art, and it surprised me with a little bit more information and a well-told story of a struggling artist and a guy learning the ropes and then just going straight up. So yeah, if you're a fan of Sean Phillips, I totally recommend you pick this up. It's pretty good stuff. So, no surprise, this one's 10 stars for me. I don't have a problem with anything about it. Build quality's good. Content is amazing. And yeah, it's really good stuff. If you like art books, and well, if you enjoy comic books at all, and you like learning about the process, and you like learning about the struggle to get in the industry and how it all works, you get a pretty good glimpse of it by reading this one. So I highly recommend it. If you like Sean Phillips and you want to learn more about him and how he got started, this is the book for you, so pick it up. Now, next Monday, I'm back with the Daredevil by Frank Miller Omnibus Companion, which they could have just called it Daredevil by Frank Miller Omnibus Volume 2, but they opted to call it Companion, maybe because it's shorter. It's a little bit, it's about half the size. It's about 500 pages or so, and the other one was like 8 something. So, at any rate, I'll be back for that. If you want to check that out, come on back. I welcome a subscription if you haven't already subscribed, and bell notify yourself so you don't miss anything. Yeah, just please come on back. And if you have the means and you want to really help support the channel, I do have a Patreon, and all that information is down below in the didgeridoo. So check it out, and come on back next week for Frank Miller Omnibus Companion. Daredevil Frank Miller Omnibus Companion. It's a long one. See ya.